Hello everyone, welcome back. Now let's see a few tools that are available to help migrate our applications, servers, etc. to AWS. One of them is Server Migration Service. This service is typically used if you have large application which has to be rehosted to AWS. Unfortunately, I cannot show you any demo of SMS. I'll give you the conceptual working how Server Migration Service works. Agenda for SMS is also very small. We'll talk about the service and how it works, then how to set up the migration. Server Migration Service actually automates the migration of on-premise virtual machines to AWS. Notice that I said virtual machines. It can help you migrate on-premise virtual machines only, not physical machines. If you have physical machines, you'll have to convert them to virtual machines first using tools provided by VMware or Microsoft Hyper-V. SMS supports only VMware vSphere or Microsoft Hyper-V or SCVMM virtual machines. So SMS can be used to migrate on-premise VMware and Hyper-V virtual machines to AWS. After migration, the virtual machines would be created as AMIs on AWS Cloud. Then EC2 instances can be launched from those AMIs. On a very high level, these are the virtual machines located on-premise data centers. We have Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Windows or SUSE or SLES. Server Migration Service uses something called a connector, which is installed as a separate virtual machine on on-premise servers. It is also called Server Migration Connector, which continuously replicates server VMs as AMIs to AWS. So this is the Server Migration Service. We'll have to create a job in our AWS console or using AWS CLI. The replication job will take snapshot of our on-premise servers and create them as AMIs in AWS. As I said earlier, SMS supports only VMware and Hyper-V virtual machines. What if you have a physical server? In fact, most of the times that would be the case. You'll have physical servers on your on-premise data centers. Then your physical servers have to be converted to virtual machines. Then these virtual machines can be migrated to AWS using Server Migration Service. Both VMware and Microsoft Hyper-V provides tools to convert physical machines to virtual ones. You don't have to worry about it. You do not have to write anything. All the virtualized environments or the tools, they provide it. So this is called P2V or physical to virtual. So be using tools provided by either VMware or Microsoft Hyper-V to convert your physical machines to virtual machines. There are a few things which have to be taken care of before starting the migration. For example, these traffic rules should be allowed from on-premise server connector to AWS. You have to whitelist some of the AWS domain names in your on-premise network. There's a long list of prerequisites which have to be set before you can start using AWS. Here is the link. This can be used to get all the prerequisites which are needed to set up before even we start working using AWS, before we start migrating our applications and servers using SMS. So how the setup should be done? Let's take example of VMware. VMware has something called vCenter. This is a management tool that is used to manage virtual machines on ESXi. So ESXi is VMware's hypervisor. ESXi is similar to VMware as Xen is to AWS. In the first class, in the introduction session, we talked about Xen, which is the hypervisor used by AWS. VMware provides private cloud and the hypervisor used by VMware is called ESXi. Suppose these are the virtual machines which are being managed by vCenter. These VMs are running on ESXi hypervisor, but they are being managed by vCenter. So vCenter would be similar to our EC2 console in AWS, but only in private cloud. We'll be using vCenter to launch virtual machines with Windows, Linux or SUSE operating systems. But these operating systems or these virtual machines would be running on ESXi, not on vCenter. Like in the case of EC2. EC2 machines are actually running on Xen hypervisor, not in the console. The console is just being used to manage or create our virtual machines, similar to that. Then we have something called vSphere client, which is an HTML based interface used to remotely connect to the vCenter server. So vSphere client is just an HTML interface to manage all these virtual machines. Server Migration Connector is also a virtual machine on ESX side, and it can be installed and managed by vCenter or vSphere client. Before installing the connector, we'll have to download the image. The image can be downloaded from AWS website, and the downloaded file is in OVA format. So once you download, this image has to be provided to vCenter so that the server migration connector can be launched as a virtual machine on top of ESXi. For migration to work, there's one more prerequisite on AWS side. An IAM role has to be created with the managed policy server migration connector. It is provided by AWS. We do not have to create this policy, and the role has to be attached to the server migration connector. Setting up of vCenter account, installation and setup of connector using vSphere client are not part of AWS architect or admin's job. It has to be done by the Unix admin or VMware and Hyper-V admins. Once all setup is done, you can start migration from the console or using CLI. Let me show you the console. So this is the console, and go to server migration service. Once all setup is done, we'll have to create a job here in server migration service. You can download the OVA from here for vCenter, and for Hyper-V, the VSD zip can be downloaded from here. I have given you example only of VMware, but you can use Hyper-V also. The underlying concept is exactly the same. So in the console, you have an option called View Connectors. You can see connectors only if you have created a server migration connector. We have not done so. That's why I'm not able to see any connectors. But once that is done, you'll have to start something called replication job. The replication job will replicate your server to AWS. So how does it works and what it does to migrate virtual machine servers to AWS? So this is our server migration connector, which has been installed as a virtual machine on either vCenter or Hyper-V. Suppose you want to migrate this Red Hat virtual machine to AWS. What the connector would do is to take snapshot of this virtual machine every now and then based on the replication job and based on our setup, and push those as AMIs to AWS. We can have daily, hourly snapshots as well. All these depends on the requirement, and the replication is continuous. Then we can create EC2 instances from these AMIs as usual. So these EC2 instances are exactly the same as this virtual machine. We have essentially migrated entire server from on-premise to AWS. Whatever on-premise servers had, for example, Oracle database, SQL Server database, or Java application, Node.js application, JavaScript UI, ETL server, or whatever were there on this on-premise virtual machine, all those have been migrated to AWS via AMI to these EC2 instances. Server migration service is totally free to use, but there are a few things to consider. SMS creates a new EBS snapshot with every replication. So EBS snapshot would incur charges as per the EBS pricing. To prevent additional charges, make sure to delete the snapshot copies which are no longer needed. There's one more additional pricing which is involved. SMS replicates server volumes from on-premise to S3 temporarily, and then eventually it purges them from S3. The EBS snapshots are created from S3. So till the time EBS snapshots are created, the server volume should be there in S3, which will incur charges. So this is a transient charge. This is temporary, pay as you go. Although we can control the price for EBS snapshot by deleting the snapshots which are not needed, the second portion we cannot do because this is a temporary thing which is done by server migration service before creating the EBS snapshots. That's all about server migration service. Thanks for watching.